I was raised mainstream Mormon in Las Vegas, Nevada. So what's portrayed in the movie is fundamentalist Mormonism. So it's pretty rare in the United States to see a fundamentalist Mormon sort of community like you see in the movie. So I grew up listening to the radio, watching TV. I went to normal high school, but I was in a Mormon family of 5. My dad was a banker, my mom was an artist, so you know, I was exposed to the more normal things. But of course, mainstream Mormonism is fairly rigid. There's still, you know, commandments, and you don't drink, you don't smoke, there's no coffee, there's no sex before marriage, these kinds of things. So I basically lived like that, and eventually did my undergrad at a Mormon university called Brigham Young University in Provo, Utah. And while I was there, I did some documentary work on fundamentalist Mormons and had the opportunity to see how mainstream Mormonism and fundamentalist Mormonism overlaps. And I became very intrigued by it, and eventually I went on a Mormon mission for a year and a half, so I was very engrossed in Mormonism. And when I got back, I started to do some documentary work on these people. I knew some people that ran away from fundamentalist Mormonism and joined mainstream Mormonism. Some of them rejected it entirely. So I just became sort of infatuated with these people and wanted to tell their story and humanize them. So the first question, why her age? 15 felt like a demarcation in my own life from being a girl to being somewhat older. I was a late bloomer, so maybe for other girls it's 13 or 14, but I feel like I needed somebody who was an older sister. I needed Rachel to feel like she could be a mother, but of course be too young, and I felt like 15 was the right age. In Mormonism, there are these sort of rites of passage that fall at certain ages. So, for example, 8 is when you get baptized, unlike Catholicism or Presbyterian, you know, other Christianity. 8 in Mormonism is when you get baptized, and 16 is when you can start dating as long as it's not exclusively. 19 boys go on missions, 21 girls go on missions. So I felt like there needed to be an age in which she felt like she was going through a rite of passage, and that was something that I imposed on this version of fundamentalist Mormonism that I portrayed. I also felt like, sorry, I have more time to think and see. I felt like, you know, when you're 16 in Mormon, you can do more things. You can drive, you can date, and 15 you can't. And I felt like she had to rebel. So 15 was like the age that she could rebel at the last instant.
Yeah.
Music is, of course, very evocative, and I feel like if you can't drink or smoke or do drugs or have sex, it's sort of the way you can rebel. And so I think in my family, I'm the youngest of 5, and I saw every single one of my older siblings going to rock and roll shows and sneaking out to do those things and bringing in cassette tapes of, you know, different mixtapes with different punk bands on them. And I think at an early age I felt something very powerful from those songs, because they were sort of like the only way we could rebel. So that had a very big impact on my life, and I think that of course is in the movie. You can see. A lot of people ask about the song. Since no one's asking questions, I could just answer that question. The song Hanging on the Telephone was one of many songs that I considered. I had the concept in mind for the movie, and then I needed to find a song to get Rachel pregnant by. And so I came up with a list of songs that could possibly get a girl pregnant, and there was of course like a lot of classic rock on there, like songs too embarrassing to mention, but this song, Hanging on the Telephone, was a recommendation, and I fell in love with it because of the themes of like the technological themes that are in the song. And it's just a really catchy, like pop rock song that seemed to sort of bridge the gap between Rachel and Mr. Will, who feel like they're from the 40s or 50s, and Clyde and Johnny and his gang, who feel like they're from 2012. So I needed sort of like a median song to like update them. I think the silliest, most offbeat things you hear about Mormons are probably true. So I kept trying to think, like, what can I deny, and they're like, no, that's real, no, that's real. So, no, of course, like, Mormons wear funny underwear, you know, Mormons, there's so much of Jell-O involved in Mormonism, because at every function somebody's making Jell-O. I don't know, you can probably answer that question better than me. It all sounds normal to me, unfortunately.
Actually, one of the first times I ever met a Mormon was Rebecca. I met her before she did the film. We had met maybe like a year and a half or 2 years before, and I had heard about people that were Mormon, and I couldn't imagine what someone in real life must be like that's from this world. And then I met her, and I didn't know for a while. And then one day she had mentioned it, and I was shocked, and I was like, "You're a Mormon?" And she was, and she was just awesome and creative, and she was living in New York City and so cool. And it totally was an example of someone that grew up with these different fundamental differences that grows up to just be someone that experienced it but is completely integrated into modern culture and society.
Too much, I think. And then our North American premiere was at South by Southwest in Austin, Texas, and they seemed to sort of hit the median between France and Berlin. So, yeah, generally people laugh a little more, but I think it depends on how far removed you are sort of from this culture. I think in America, the idea of fundamentalist Mormonism and Mormonism in general is much closer to the surface of our media right now. So I think they sort of understood it. I'm not sure. I'm going to go to another screening here of my movie to see what happens. I'm so curious.